over here. So let me kind of refresh my memory as well as your all memory here. So what we're going to do is going to talk about the Dylan kind of hit it from the operator point of view, kind of what is the things that you need to kind of know from the operator's point of view financially, Scott from the investors, and Heidi from the vacationer. Again, this is just general speaking. You can say whatever you want to say. I want to talk about the finances. What do the numbers look like? Like Daryl's question was really about the numbers. Does this make financial sense? There was some question about, I want a 4% ROI. How do you make this work? Dylan, from an operator's point of view, financially, what should you be thinking about?
Definitely one piece is, how much work do you want to do, right? So the more of the rental that you outsource, the more cost you're going to have. So if you're going to be an operator and you're going to do the cleanings yourself, you're going to do the bookings yourself, you can obviously make a lot more money if you're going to do all of that stuff, the marketing, all the accounting, paying the taxes, because there's management companies that will do all of that stuff for you. But then you're going to be paying, 25, 30% management fee for them to take care of all of those responsibilities for you. So definitely operators who are more involved, I see, do much better. One thing to consider also is like on Airbnb and VRBO, they favor people who are engaged and involved. And so if you're a owner that is posting your property on Airbnb or VRBO and you're very engaged and you communicate and you get back to people quickly and it ends up leading to a very positive review, you're going to have better results on those platforms. If you're just outsourcing the whole thing and it's a management company with 100 units and they're not doing, not giving people that personal touch, it may not benefit your unit as much. So all of that is something you got to consider. And then from a cost standpoint, if you have a mortgage on the property, it's very hard to turn a profit. I mean, even if the rental does very well, when you add in the management fees, the HOA fees, the taxes, and then, mortgage on top of that, if you're breaking even, you're probably doing okay. But that's one thing you got to consider. If you're paying cash and you don't have the mortgage cost every month, then it may be profitable. But again, it's a case by case basis. Every single unit is different. The HOAs can vary greatly. So those are all things you got to run the numbers on. And then to just say like, I need a 4% monthly ROI, that's a little bit unreasonable because of our seasonal nature, right? We have very high occupancy in the summer and the winter, 90+%. But then in the fall and the spring, it can be under 50%. So you got to more look at it on a yearly basis. There may be months where you make a ton of money and months where you actually lose money, and then it evens out at the end of the year. So you just got to run the numbers and see what works.
Thanks, Dylan. That's a great overview. I think the moral of the story is it depends on how much work you want to do, right? That's the big one. That's a great insight on the Airbnb side. Scott, from an investor perspective, if I was an investor, what kind of things do I need to be thinking about to kind of get up to do the best possible investment if I'm thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, when investors invest, they're typically investing for the numbers, the return on investment. And usually what I tell people is Hawaii is pretty much on the residential side, which is going to include some of the short-term vacation rentals of what I call a cap rate or a capitalization rate. And you can kind of Google what that is at some point. But we're about 4%. And it can be 3.5% to 4.5%. I can kind of get people in those ranges. And the biggest thing is if you're going to use your investment, that means you're taking it out of the investment pool at the time. The more you use it, the less return on your money you're going to get. So you have this big balancing effect that I have to chat with with people sometimes. Is like, hey, how often do you want to use it? We want to use it 6 months out of the year. We want to be positive cash flow. Okay, well, you've just eliminated income for 6 months out of the year by using it that much. So how do we position you? How much cash do you have to bring in? Do you have to pay all cash in order to be positive cash flow in that capacity? Or can we put some what we call debt servicing or a loan on the property to be able to balance it out? And it's all just kind of looking at the numbers and massaging the game and what's the lifestyle and what's the kind of investment performance you want. We analyze it. Does this make sense for you? Yes, no, you can move forward or not.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's what you have to think about. It's all about the numbers and how much cash you want to put down. And I think that's a really good point that you brought up, Scott, which is if you use the property, you're sort of taken away. Then the other part of your calculation is, yes, you're using the property, but at the same time, how much would you pay for a vacation if you were to go on a vacation anyway? And how does all that factor? So lots of calculations. I hope you're good with spreadsheets to figure all that part out. Heidi, what do you want to add to this whole conversation about the financial side? I mean, I put you down for the vacation perspective, but it could be anything. What do you want to what can you sort of add to what we talked about from the financial point of view that people should be thinking about that we've missed?
Well, I work with a lot of clients who are investing in vacation rentals, and it's always a balance, right? Because you want to have good numbers, you want it to be a good investment, but what you're also investing in is your lifestyle. The best reason to buy a vacation rental on Maui is because you want to come and stay there and enjoy it. And the way to look at it is you're able to rent it out the rest of the year when you're not there and offset your costs. I mean, that's a good way to think about it. And then hopefully make a little bit of money. But really, the ability to do short-term rentals allows you to do that versus owning a property that's going to sit vacant most of the year. So going back to, I think it was Daryl's first question, comment, should I buy something now, a smaller property, and then later invest in a home? I actually think that makes a lot of sense, especially if initially in the next few years or so, you're just going to be able to spend a limited amount of time on Maui. And then maybe down the road, when you're able to spend more time here, it makes more sense to buy a bigger property. And a lot of people do that. And it does give you a chance to spend more time in the area, get to know the areas. I think it's a great way to go.
Thanks, Heidi. Go, Dylan.
One other perspective, right? Even if the property is a break-even property and you get to use it for a month out of the year, for free, right? I mean, there's a lot of enjoyment, there's value to that. And you got to look at the long-term appreciation also. So you may not make the money year over year from the rental standpoint, but over 10 years, you might make a significant return when you sell that property. So that's one thing to factor into the whole equation also is don't focus so much on like the monthly or yearly returns. If you're looking to just park money, and like we're talking about these 5, 10, 20% increases in property values over the years, you could make a significant return on the back end when you actually sell it. And on that note, that's something you really want to consider also as you're looking at it from an investor standpoint. Hawaii has HARPTA, which is a 7.25% capital gains tax on real estate. And so you want to look into that and kind of forecast. If you're going to move to Hawaii and become a resident, you'd be exempted from that when you actually sell the property. But a lot of times that's a disincentive for people to sell property because they're going to get hit with a pretty big tax when they sell it if they're not a Hawaii resident. So something to look into and consider with your CPA before you make that investment.
Yeah, that's a great. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at investments, and why Hawaii is different, and I always kind of chuckle with people because people will come to me all the time and go, "Hey, I want to be cash flow positive and get a 5% return on that cash flow." And and then so you're looking at an investment from one component, just the cash flow component. You have this leveraging component that's different than every other place or every other type of investment where you can borrow against. Bring in 20% or 30% of the value of the property, use somebody else's money to borrow against it, have a payment, have a renter pay that portion off and down. So you are getting a return on the principal reduction. Then you got appreciation over time and you got depreciation that you can use on your taxes. So there's actually 4 different ways you can get a return on a property. So I look at cap rate and then what is the life of the performance of that property over time is called an internal rate of return. And that's the bigger analysis that you should do from a property. What is this thing? How is this going to perform in all the different areas based on what you need?
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know what? Tom Kerr agrees. Tom's got a big comment here, so I'm going to pop it over this way. So Tom says, hey, be sure to talk to your accountant. Let me see if I can make it a better way to do it. There's no easy way I'm going to make this work, so we'll just do it this way. Tom says, be sure to talk to your accountant. If you own a condo as a rental, not your residence, then sell your mainland residence and also sell your condo rental at the same time to buy a bigger condo or house. You could face big capital gains tax on the condo sale. Better to sell your mainland residence, move to the condo, live in it for a couple of years. It becomes your residence to avoid the capital gains tax impact. Thanks, Tom. Love the tip. Appreciate it. And again, the moral of the story is,